In this short video, I'll be taking you through how to approach the Cambridge IGCSE Geography Paper 1 case study responses for the theme, if any question came up for the theme 3.5 energy. So what will we go through together? I'll go through the syllabus requirements of what you're expected to know for energy, very quick overview of the geographical theory, how to go about getting appropriate data and place specific references for these responses, and go through potential 7-mark responses. How to use this content. As I go through, you have your notes, your case studies out in front of you. I'm going to give you my suggestions. So you play, pause, have a go, update your notes, do a bit of research, rewind if there's anything you don't understand, and then have a go at doing the work. It's really important that you do actually have a go at adapting the notes you studied, merge what I maybe potentially tell you, and to come up with a really good response that you could potentially use in your exam. I will not give you an answer to copy. I will not go through my responses. I will not go through it in countries that I teach, but I will show you where I get the data from and will show you the type of things that I get my students to look out for. And so it's a chance for you to basically go over, refine your case study notes, and really just to give you tips on exam technique and how to gain maximum marks. So paper 1 assessment breakdown, just to remind you, it's 105 minutes, it's got 75 marks, 45% of your final grades. You answer 3 25-mark responses. You will then answer 3 7-case study questions within those 25-mark responses. 3 sections, 1 question from each. Section A, theme 1 is population assessments. So question 1 is any or a mix of population themes. Question 2 is any or a mix assessment themes, so you choose to do either 1 or 2. Section B is any or a mix of themes, 2.1 to 2.5. Question 4 again, any that's not been asked in the previous question, but it could be a mix. Question 3 is same as theme section B. So what does the syllabus say? Here you go. So you pretty much need to know the importance of non-renewable fuels, renewable energy, etc. Evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of using each one, and then you need to tell me or tell the examiner energy supply within a country or area. So a few definitions for you, just worth noticing that primary energy consumption is all of the energy a country consumes by industry, including manufacturing and generating electricity, heating for homes and businesses and everything else, and transport, whereas electricity production is pretty much the energy we use to generate electricity. So non-renewable fossil fuels formed from living organisms take a very long time to form and replace what we currently use. Okay, so basically a long time to make coal, gas and oil, and therefore we can't replace what we currently use because it takes too long to make. They will therefore eventually run out. And the 3 big examples I mentioned are coal, crude oil, and natural gas. Renewable energy resources obtained from natural resources, so wind, sun, waves, tides, heat, rivers, used continuously unless we interfere with them. And biofuels, really, you can count them as renewable if you have reforestation programs. Nuclear energy, 2 types, fission and fusion. We currently use fission to generate heat, so we're splitting the atom, that generates vast amounts of heat. Aspects are renewable and non-renewable. So energy mix and energy gap. Another really important thing when it comes to energy supply for a country is understanding where a country gets its energy from. Generally, the wealthier you are, the more diverse your mix is. So you might, instead of, obviously if you're an oil producing nation, you probably rely heavily on oil or gas to produce your electricity. Yet if you're in a country that doesn't have those supplies, but you might have a large river, you might rely on that to generate electricity. But generally speaking, we get a mix of sources. Obviously fossil fuels being heavily important, but now with the cost of renewables coming down, we are using more and more renewable energy, particularly generated electricity. Energy gap, basically when a country cannot meet the demand for energy using its own resources. So basically it's the gap of how much you need to import. The larger the gap, the more insecure you are. And you can just think about Ukraine conflicts and what's going on with Europe at the moment, when Europe is so massively dependent on one source of gas, and how that has caused huge problems. So getting data for this. Personally, I would recommend Our World in Data. It's really good websites, very easy to obtain the data, historical data as well, going back at least 20 years from most countries in the world. So this is where you should go. As you see watching the video, I take you through on the home page where you can go to get energy. Is really simple. As you go through, it tells you all the sorts of things that you can go. So if you're here and you click on energy, you can see that you can go through, you can select countries, you get lovely choropleth maps of the whole world, really clear keys, you can select the countries you want to focus on, and everything else. If you go to the research and writing area, there's loads of little things, there's loads of charts that you can quickly access, and so it's a very good website to start your research clearly. And it's not just about energy, there's all sorts of other aspects as well, pretty much data for the world. Here I'm just showing you how to select the charts, how you can go time, and you can look at patterns as well. In here, once you select it, you've got a nice picture showing you trends through time, what happens when you hover over certain years. You can focus on particular energy resources here and see how that changes. You can select any countries that you want to look at, regions as well, and that's really useful. You can deselect, you can compare, contrast. So here, if I want to look at the European Union, if you go to settings, you can actually move it. You can split by metric, so you can look at individual energy sources, or you can align, so they're all on a similar scale as well. And so again, that is, and you can also display relative values as well, which means you can go from actual core values to percentages. You can play a time lapse, see how that changes, and you can download images of the data itself, and also the data set into Excel. Here, this is when you get a nice choropleth map, and it shows you again you can do through time. What I like about this is that if you hover over, you can select years as well, and you can wind forward, go back in time. What I like about this is that when you download the data, you get the full data set as well in images. You can select regions as well, which is really nice if you're focusing on a region for an investigation. And if you hover over the country, you can obviously go to chart, and you can see what's going on. But if you hover over a country, you get that little nice charts that you can click on as well. So again, have a little play and find out what you need. I'm going to give you suggestions in the comments and in the video about the data sets I use to help my students with their case study, place-specific references and data. This is just a really nice little graphic from my world and data that shows you, so as you become more developed, the type of energy that you use, and the main source of sort of heating your homes and cooking. So some really nice graphs for you to consider. Global primary energy consumption by source, really nice. Remember, this is globally, but you can also select the countries. You've got the actual total amounts, and you can break down the various different energy there. As well, what's worth noticing when it comes to these, that if you look at hydropower and nuclear, they've been around for a very long time. So hydropower is probably our largest source of renewable energy that's historically been there, and obviously nuclear power. Solar, wind, you can see as they've become cheaper, the technology's improved, our use of those have also massively improved. And again, this is what it looks like when you select the percentages. So again, although you get the actual values, that when you look at percentages, this is a much easier way to remember the data, and it's easier to compare changes through time. Energy use per person, again, you can see what it's a snapshot in time, which areas of the world use more energy and not, and potentially suggest reasons. So generally, it boils down to the number of people. The more people you have, the more energy you need. Also money, the wealthier you are, the more you consume, the more energy intensive things you have, which so therefore requires more energy. And obviously if you're an advanced economy, highly technological, you need more energy to make that work. Other little factors as well, considering homes and how much you need to heat them, so climatic conditions, if you're rich in fossil fuels, mentioned the climate again. And so these are all various little things to consider. Other natural resources, or maybe the presence of large rivers, and how urbanized your country is coming. The more urban you are, the more energy you consume for heating, housing, transports, providing the needs of your urban populations. When it comes to electricity, again, all these links to the ones I use are in the chat, in the comments, sorry. And again, you can see electricity use through time. You can put it in percentages, And again, if you look at the similar reasons, generally the more people you have, the larger your homes, the more money, the more technologically advanced you are, the more electricity you require. And again, I've put other little things just to help you. Again, are you rich in fossil fuels? So you might not want to invest in renewable energy if you've just got vast amounts of fossil fuels. You might be rich in one type of renewable energy. So for example, wind, rivers, or solar. So again, you would focus on that. And again, if you're urbanized, you require more electricity to make your urban areas work. These are really nice little graphics, again, just to get a very quick summary of the three broad types of energy. So the previous one was for primary, this one's for electricity production. And so the case of the European Union, I think is quite a nice little one here just to show you changes through time and the impacts of investment on energy production. So if you look at the European Union, you can see overall the European Union is using less energy than what it did back in 2000. That could be for a whole variety of reasons: homes becoming more efficient, cars becoming more efficient, generally aware of our individual consumer needs. You can see interesting little dips here due to recessions, about how that means that if you're producing less, you require less energy. Again, you can look at the impacts of investments and maybe environmental laws for why coal's becoming less, gas is becoming more, nuclear energy is becoming less important in Europe, but wind and solar have improved. Hydropower could reflect the fact that we've pretty much exploited all the rivers in the European Union. And again here, you can see how that has changed through time in terms of electricity production, which ones are becoming more or less important. And so back onto this about, we talked about where you can get the data from. Looking at this, it's important to know how electricity is generated. Pretty much the main type is that we boil water. That turns a turbine which generates electricity. We can directly turn that turbine through tidal, hydroelectric power, or winds. And obviously you've got solar energy, which is very different. This is a great little video for you to check out. It's called, I'll put the link again into the comments, but they just go through every single type of electricity for you to go through. And so really useful, important little facts. So things to consider when looking at the strengths and weaknesses of fossil fuels. I've given all these questions for you. I don't want to go through each individual type, but certainly these questions there are things for you to consider. And again, I've done the same for renewable energy. Questions to consider about the strengths and weaknesses for each type that you need to be aware of. I'd recommend that you learn sort of broad ones like, is it expensive? And then sort of one or two directly related to each type of energy. So these are 15 questions here just to sort of get you thinking. And then nuclear energy, again, some of the big questions here that I'm considering as well. There's some good past papers as well for you to look into that can help you answer these. So locational factors, about where you do it. Again, these are some of the things to consider for each type. How close is it to a fuel source? Do you need cooling water? How far is it away to be connected to the electricity grid for the region? What's the environmental impact of building that? Offshore, onshore wind farm, solar farm, gas power station, what impact would it have on the local wildlife? Is there enough land available? What about the weather and climate patterns? How accessible is it to actually build and access your energy resources? And is it going to annoy people in the local area? So case study questions. Remember, it's not all about the numbers, but actually, although it's not, energy kind of is. So key command words about what they mean. Generally for energy, you just get the first two. So common 7-mark responses. Pretty much they break down to supply and importance. So for June, here are the most recent ones I found. Describe the methods used to supply energy, explain how energy is supplied, and then which ones are important, and explain why those particular energy resources are important. So mentioned about Our World in Data is a brilliant source. Specific references could be, do you import energy from other countries? Are there names of power stations, wind farms, etc. that are particularly important? Have there been policies to increase or reduce the amounts of one or multiple types of energy? Do you have daylight hours? That's important for solar. Do you have your own reserves? What's the energy potential of your country? These are all place-specific references that you could mention for this. So here's a useful table that you could use to start making your notes to reflect. Again, using the links that I've put in the comments and the video description. You got the energy, you look at the breakdown of how much of that energy for that particular country comes from natural gas, oil, coal, fossil fuels, renewable, and then you can once you've got that, then you can put that in order of importance. And you can do that for at least 2 years, 2000 and the most recent years, and that's really easy to show importance. Once you've done that for primary, you can then do it for electricity generation. And then you've got place-specific references. So you might want to think about name and location of plants and farms, policies to increase, decrease, facts about potential, and are there any places that you import energy from. So these are sort of things that you can start making notes on. And then if we break down the questions, I would use something like this. In 2022, insert country consumed over X amount of terawatt hours in energy. This came from a variety of domestic sources and imports. So I'll go through about the main source of primary energy, and then main source of electricity, and then talk about renewable energy, and maybe consider about nuclear energy. That's for the first one. For the second one, again, once you've got the structure from the previous question, then you just need to explain why that country uses a lot of gas or imports a lot of gas, or why does it use a lot of wind energy, maybe not so much coal. And then that's when you mention in policies, reserves, heating, abundant supply of one or more renewable energy resources, etc. And then when it comes to importance, you can then talk about, that's when you put it in order of which is the most important energy sources. Then you can talk about maybe which ones that have become less important. And then again, you can end it with the role in nuclear energy. And then you need to explain the reasons why that energy resource has maintained its importance, become more important, or has decreased in importance. And again, this is when you mention policies, reserves, heating, and abundant supply of one or more. So in conclusion, short answer responses are very useful. Please go and make sure that you answer as many energy short questions responses as possible, because sometimes the points in the mark schemes can help you structure and get reasons why energy resources are really important. Data and place facts are equally important, and get up-to-date data. Go through, use the links I've given you, and update your notes. 5 points generally for describe, 4 points for explain, and do practice. Thank you for watching.